In this video, we're going to learn the different types of ORM, and for this topic, I'll be discussing about Bookshelf.js. So now, without any further ado, let's get started. What is Bookshelf.js? It's another type of JavaScript form built in for Node, and also with the Kinect SQL query builder that features promises-based and traditional callback interfaces, transaction support, eager or nested eager, relation loading, polymorphic associations, and support for one-to-one, one-to-many, and many-to-many relations. It is designed to work with Postgres, SQL, MySQL, and SQLite 3. If you want to read furthermore, you can check this on this website by typing bookshelves.org. For our demo for this day is we're going to create a crud application or crud process using bookshelves. And for our requirements, I'll be using MySQL. And for our database, I'll be using XAMPP or XAMPP. And for my another requirements, basically it's not a requirement, but if you want to experience an IDE, you can use this IDE SQL. This is a free IDE that supports all the SQL like MariaDB, MySQL, MSSQL, Postgres, and SQLite. For this demo, I already prepared the database. As you can see, I already created a database called DB Bookshelf and with a table named Customers. So let's begin. To start with, I'll be creating a new folder. And this folder name as Bookshelf crud. And for this demo, I'll be using VS Code. And on your part, you can use any IDE as long there is Node.js. Okay, so let's make it a little bigger since this is already compressed. Okay, there you go. So now we'll proceed with our terminal. Okay. So to begin with, we initialize first our npm init. Okay, so once you're ready, we'll start with the package. So let's pick this first. Okay, good. Okay, so these are these of package that we need. First, we need to type npm install or I. For this topic, I'll be using Bookshelf, Express, Kinect, and MySQL 2. Okay, you might wondering why is it there's still Kinect in this form. Basically, Bookshelf serves as the model. So this one controls the same way as what the Kinect does. This is only the enhanced version. So if you want to know more about Kinect, please check on my first video about Kinect and how did we start out with there, so that you have a knowledge on how this bookshelf will be related to. Okay, cool. So let's clear this up. Okay, let's review our package. Okay. For this, or as of the time of this recording, our Bookshelf version is 1.2, and with the Express of 4.17.1, Kinex with 0.95.10, and MySQL 2 with a version of 2.3.0. Okay, so that should be part of the first one. So the next thing is we need to create now our first our default or the preparation for our application. So to do that, we'll start first with our entry point. So to begin with, we'll start with server.js. And from here, we need to start with the bar express. And going to require express bar app equals to express, and we need to set up our application. We need to type this port, then process that environment, that port, we'll serve that to port 4000. So from here, we need to search or initialize our listening port. So we need to type app.listen, app.get port, port, comma, start with the function er, if error, then we need to throw that error and set up our message if the server is, or where the server is listened to. So here server it's running at http://localhost and need to assign our server dot address dot port. Yeah, so that should be it. And then we need to console log. Okay, so that should be it. So let's save that. And we hit our run. So for this demo, I'll be using NodeMon, but I want to install NodeMon as usual. I'll be using npx, and I will call NodeMon in here. Okay. Okay. I want to move this a little closer. Okay, there you go. Okay, so that's the first part. So now that we set up our entry point, so let's prepare first our database connection. So to do that, I'll be creating a new folder, and I'll be naming that as config. And from here, I'm going to create a new file, which is called tb.js. Okay, so from here, the first thing is we need to initialize our Kinex. Since this will be the main connection, or the only connection that supports Bookshelf. Let's say connects. Okay. So from here, so let's set up our connection. So our client, we're using MySQL 2. MySQL or MySQL. Then from here, I'm going to set up the connection and our host. We're using localhost. User, I'm using root. Password 1 2 3 4 5. For a database, type in database. So our database is DB Bookshelf. Let's type in that. DB Bookshelf. And of course, we need to set up our car set. This UTF 8. Okay. Then of course, we need to export this connection. Okay, so that's the first one. Now, one of the requirements as well is we need our connection between our table. So in here, I created a table customer. So we need to make a model connection to support this connection. So to do that, we need to create a new folder here, and I'm going to name that as models, and then file name as customers.js. Now, if you're running or having experience running ORM like DB SQLize, you can set a bunch of that. But in here, instead of setting up those properties of a table in Bookshelf, you can connect it or set up it directly. So this is a good one if you want to migrate from different form. So Bookshelf is also a good one for that. So let's start first from our connection. So from here, we need to type connects. Then we need to call our connection, the one that we set up a while ago. So we need to type /config/db. And of course, we need to set up the connects. That's our connects. Then from here, I'll be calling our Bookshelf. Then next to Bookshelf, this is where the section that we need to initialize our connects. Okay, so that's how you set up the Bookshelf requirements. So next line is we need to create our models. So to do that, we need to assign the model name, which is customers. Then we need to call our Bookshelf the model that extend. Then we need to specify our table name. So from here, I'll be calling the customer tables, customers. And if you're ready for this one, so we need to export the module. Exports equals to customers. Okay, cool. Okay. Now that we set up our connection and our models, the next thing we need to do now is we need to create our routes. So since we're performing an NBC, so from here, I'm going to create the routes for our connection. Okay, so from our routes, the usual, I'm using index.js. Okay, so to prepare the connection, I'm going to set this as well in the entry point. So to do that, so I'll be calling cons routes equals to require dot slash routes dash index. And then from here, I'm going to pass this PPP. Okay, so don't mind with the errors because we haven't set up yet our routes. Okay. So from here, we're going to call our module that exports, and we assign a function to pass that variable. Okay. Now that we set up our index, the first thing that I want to do is I want to list down all the customers first. But since we don't have the value yet, so I will prepare the list of customers. So let's start with app.get. So I'm going to call that as customers. Okay. I'll post that from this section here because right now we don't have the routers yet. So to do that, I'm going to create a new folder. I want to call that as controller. And from here, I'm going to create a new file named customer controller.js. Okay. Now, what are the requirements in our course, in our way on how to call the bookshelf? So the first requirement here is we need to load up first the models by calling bar customers, then going to locate our path that is leading to our models. Okay, so that's it. Okay. Now this time we can perform the list of customers. So to do that, need to type exports dot customers sync rec res. Okay, so the usual, I always perform a try and catch. So make sure we always perform this one. So perform a catch e, then console.log. I can call this as fail to fetch the record. Or we can say fail to fetch the data. Say this is. Okay, so but here you're going to change this to this one so that this will run as dynamic, so that whatever changes that we made, this will auto print out freely. So okay, so we already done with the try and catch. But the next thing now is we need to perform a fetch request. So from here, I'm going to call a cons response. And since we're using a sync, So I should apply a wait. Then calling our model. This is our model. Then from here, I'll be calling that porch. Then from here, going to perform the fetch off. Fetch off. Okay, good. Now once you, or since we already fetch all, then this time we're going to perform the then function data. Okay. From here, going to call cons rest equals to success, the true, data. Okay, so this is how we pass our data. We form that in JSON. And going to hit a return res. Okay, so that's the first one. Then let's move to the next line. From here, going to catch an error. Let's say error, like that. Let's do it like this. Catch error. Okay, so that should be it. Catch error. Then from here, going to call the cons rest equals to windows. So I need to success equals to false. Then error. Oops. Error. Okay. And same goes, going to perform a return res. Okay. Then outside this catch is we're going to pass this response value. So from here, let's start with res.json and response. Okay, so let's check first. Make sure everything is okay. So, okay, so we have an error here. Where a server that's line 6. So cons routes tpt. Okay, let's check that first. Routes tpt. Okay, then it's fine. Okay, so while waiting, while we having this error here, well, let's reconnect first our controller. So from our routes, okay, so from our routes, I'm going to call that controller. So to do that, need to type cons controller. Going to call this require controller / customers. From here, need to pass controller dot customers. Okay, so no more errors. Okay, cool. Okay, so for this, okay, we need to check now if this is working. So to do that, first we need to make sure that we're running. Oh yeah, I think everything's okay. So for this demo, I won't be using any front end for this part, but instead I'll be using Thunder Client. Okay. So Thunder Client is similar to Postman. So for you guys, if you don't know where to get this Thunder Client, you just simply go to this extension and search Thunder Client. Okay. Or if you're using Postman, so same goes, you just use your normal Postman. Either way, still okay. So let's grab this one here. Then I'm going to paste that in here. So take note, we need to check our request. We're performing a GET request. So I'm going to call these customers. So I'm going to add it here. Let's move this a little closer. So let's try. If I hit send, okay, seems there's a problem. Let's cancel. Okay, so there's a problem with our connection. So let's check why. Customers. Okay, so okay, I think I know why. Because since we're passing a request from JSON, Node server don't recognize this or is an invalid request. So we need to fix that format. So to do that, we need to include an additional setup. So to do that, it should be localhost. Okay. Okay. To do that, we need to ensure. Oh, so this is localhost. So let's save that first. So just to make sure that everything is working. Yeah, I think I missed L here. That should do it. So let's try again, just to make sure that this is working. So by clicking send, and there you go. Okay, so I think this one is working. So there's no issue on that part yet. But either way, okay. So this one is okay. So for now, we successfully created a request using get to list down the data. But for now, we don't have the data yet. So we're going to prepare our next setup is inserting. So we need to perform an inserting method to fill out this table or request. But before that, since we're performing a request this time, I'll be adding one section here, a middleware. So to do that, let's call this middlewares. So from here, I'll be using app.use. Then I'm going to call this express JSON. Okay. Then from here, I'm going to set up the URL encode. So same goes. I'll be using the express.url encoded. Then we're going to set up the extend to true. Save that one. Okay, cool. Okay, now that we done with our middlewares, so this will serve as the if there's a request, this will convert those requests into a JSON format that will recognize by our backend server. So this is our backend. Okay, so now let's proceed with the next one. So going back with our routes, this time I'm going to perform a post request. So the objective here is we're going to perform a insert method. So for that to be able to work, we need to perform a post request And I'm going to call that as create. So I'll be calling, okay. For now, we don't have the create yet. So let's, okay. So let's create that first. To do that, we need to go back to here, to controller. Then, I'm going to copy this one here. Okay. Okay. So let's move to the next line. Just to make sure that this one up. Okay. So same goes. We need to perform the try and catch. I can copy this one and paste it here. Okay, so this is the error. Okay, so that's the first part. Okay, so from this section here, we're going to create or name that as create. So we're going to perform an insert method. So to do that, we need to first accept the request by typing cons extracting from the request body, say rec.body. So this is from our request, this request body. So from that request, we're going to extract this field, the name, email, address, and phone. Okay, so these are the values that we need to extract. And then we're going to call the cons response equals to await. Then we're going to call the customers, the model customers. Then going to perform a purge. Okay. And from here, we're going to pass on those values. So first the name, email, what else? So we have the address, and our first, the last one is the phone. Okay, so this is how you set up the saving method. So from here, we initialize by setting up those values from the request body. Okay, and to trigger the save, we need to extend this one by simply typing that save. Okay, so that's how it goes. Then let's proceed with the then function data. Okay, so we can copy from the previous one. So let's say this one. We can copy this one and set up here. Then of course going to include a message detail. So let's say created successfully. Okay. Okay, so that's how we set up our saving data or saving requests. Of course, since we have the then, we need to include also the catch error. So from here, we can simply copy this. Okay. And the last one, since we're passing that in this cons response, So we need to print that out. So we can copy this one as well and paste this on the last sections. I'm going to move this closer. Okay, so that we have a clear view. Okay, cool. So once again, we need to check. So from our index, we can call now that function. So controller dot wait. Okay, cool. So let's proceed now. Please take note, this time we're using post. So let's go back to our requests. I can copy this one here. So instead of using this, I'm going to make a new request. Okay, so from here, so from our index, we need to call this URL. Just to make sure that everything is working. Okay, so like I said, we'll be using a post request, and from our post request, we'll be using JSON. So from here, we'll fill out a JSON request. So to do that, we need to include the name, email, address, and phone. So make sure it should be in this manner. Okay, so for the name, and put my name here. It should be here. Email, so you can put any email. So let's say best@gmail.com. For the address, let's say Sambopil. Okay. Phone number, we can put anything. So let's 1, 2, 3, 5. Okay, so that should be it. So let's try if this works. So let's move this a little closer. Okay, so let's try. So sending now our post. So send. And there you go. Oops. Okay, cool. So that works. So I'll be adding additional record for this one, so that we have a lot of records to watch for. So this one. Okay, that one, and and okay, so let's view that using the first request. So this one. So from here, let's check all of them, and there you go. Okay, cool. Now that we completed our insert method, so this time we're going to perform a search ID. So to do that, okay, so take note, the first one is we created a list of entry, and the next one is we perform a post method to receive those entry or created the data. Now this time we're going to make a get request for retrieving or one single record. So to do that, you need to type app.get. So I'll be calling that as slash get slash ID. Okay, so from here, so since we don't have this record yet, so let's create that request. So to do that, we need to go back to our controller. And from our controller, I can copy this one here and create to the next line. And I'm going to copy this catch. Okay, so that's it. And I'll be calling this one as get. Okay, cool. Okay, from here, let's call first our ID. From the RID, and let's perform a request params. Okay, so from here, same goes. I'm going to copy the cons response, then calling the await customers. Okay. From here, we can call the porch, and from our porch, we can call the ID and pass the parameter ID. Okay, and of course, we're going to perform a fetch. So yeah, so that should be it. Okay, so from here, let's proceed with the then function data. Okay, so let's say if data dot length is not equals to 0, then let's call the cons. Okay, so maybe we can copy the data that we have a while ago. Let's say, yeah, I think this should be it. We can copy this and want to paste that here. Okay, but instead of including this message, we just only passing the data. Okay, so I put, so that should be it. Now from here, I'm going to perform a else request. Then going to send res status of 404. Then going to call that success to false. Then message, you can say record not found with ID, and going to pass the ID parameter. Okay. Alright, so that should be it. So we're just working first on the then. So of course, we need to include our catch for this one. So to do that, of course, we can use this one. We just copy this one. Should be here. Okay. And outside this catch, we can copy this res.json response. Because this one, we always assign that in here. So that should be passed from this data. Okay, cool. So right now, we managed to finish our export.get. So this time, we're going to pass that in our router. So let's pull controller dot get. Okay, cool. Okay, let's proceed now with the request. So let's say I'm going to copy this one here. Then from our Thunder client, go to create a new request. Using the method of get, I'm going to call the get. Okay, so let's review first. So take note, this is the format. So I'm going to copy that. Okay, so let's try this now. So from here, I'm going to check first the ID 1. So here I'm going to hit this send request, and there you go. So there's value 1, value 2, value 3, and value 4. So for value 4, we got an error message. This is empty response. Okay, so yeah, so that works. Okay, cool. So that seems to works now. Okay, the next thing now we need to create now is okay. So we already performed the customers list, create, get ID. Now this time, let's try working on the update method, or update request. So for this request, we'll be using the put method. And I'm going to call this as update. Okay, just simply update. Okay, since we don't have the controllers yet, so we need to set up our controllers. So let's go back to our controller. Okay, from our controller, I'm going to copy this. Okay, so from here, need to rename this as update. Then going to copy this catch. Okay, so now that we have the try, the catch. Okay, cool. So this is how we start up with our update. Now before that, since we're performing a update request, I'll be passing a request from our, of course, we need to get the data from our body. Now to do that, I'll be copying this one. This should be it. Okay, so from here, I'm going to include one more. I'll be including the ID as well. So since this is a update request, so I'll be using all the requests from the body. Okay, so let's continue. So this one is a little bit different from the one that we're working. So what we need to do is the usual. We need to call the await customers. Then from here, we're going to perform the where ID, comma, ID. So this is where the query section is. This is where the sections you're going to perform the query. So if that works, then this time we're going to perform the fetch. Okay. So once this fetch is complete, then let's begin with our then. So from our then, we need to call a function, and I'm going to call this as customers. Okay. So this is where our saving part. So notice that we set up our, usually we perform the request is within, of course, same within this section, but this time the next method should be done as well inside. So from here, I'm going to call these customers from this function, and then I'll be calling the save method. Okay, so what are these methods? So let's say we want to copy this one here and paste it here. The same goes. These are the values that we're going to update. And last one. Okay, so that's it. Now, since we're performing a save method, now it's safe to say that we can also do the then within this section here. So from here, we can pass the data or send a notification. So let's say from here, we can type cons response. Okay, so let's start first with the success equals to true. Okay, and data, we can pass the response data, and then we can include the message as well. So let's say successfully updated. Okay, so within this section here, we can do now our JSON response. So rest.json and response. Oops, this should be cons. Okay, so that works. Okay, so from here, if this is a successful update, then this post will return the response to the in JSON format. Okay, so now I can copy these error messages and set up in here. Okay, but of course we need to include this one, so we need to paste that in here. Okay, so that should be it. And here, so this is the then for this outside. So I can copy this one as well. Take note, this last bracket here, or these parentheses, is belong to this one. So still I'm going to perform a catch error here. Okay, that should return the error if there's something wrong within this section here. So, okay. Okay, cool. So I guess that should work now. So let's continue with our routes. From here, let's call or connect our controller. This is now the update. Okay, so that should be it. So take note, I'm using a put request. So let's go back here. So I can copy this one here. And using our Thunder client, let's make a new request. So this time should be a put request. So from here, let's copy this one, update. Okay, so that's it. So let's try to update one of the records that we have. So to do that, let's go back here. So yeah, this is a good one. So let's say I can copy this one here. Is Cyan Coraza. So this ID 3. And from our update, we can paste that in our body. Oops. So let's go back again in there. Copy. Oh, so I cannot paste. Anyway, so let's just type that one. That's ID 3. That's I wonder what. Let's say I want to paste that in here. So there's no way to copy this one. Okay, so I guess we need to type this all. Okay, maybe I can use this one. Okay, from here, that was ID 3. Okay. Okay, so from here, I'm going to change this name. So let's say I'm going to call this as Migs or Migi Kabaya. Okay. So same goes. So let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is from US. So okay, so let's test our update method. So from here, let's see, hit send, and there you go. Okay, cool. So let's check our record. So let's go back to our first request. So this is Cyan. So let's resend again, and there you go. Okay, cool. So now that we completed our update request, so the last one, I'll be performing a delete request. So basically, this is a crud request. So let's work on that. So from here, let's call on a delete request. And first, I'll be using a delete method with a value of ID. Okay, for now, we don't have this request. Same goes, we're going to create the delete request. So let's go back to our controllers. So from here, I can copy again. Let's copy this one. Let's make a new entry from here. Then let's perform a delete function. Okay, so that's the one. And let's copy this one here. Paste. I can say this as no record path. Okay, so basically, since we're getting a request, so let's say we can use this one. So I can copy this one. Okay, so the difference with this one is instead of request body, since we're only dealing with ID, so I'm going to remove this ID here. And this one should be request params. Okay. Also, this time, I'm going to pass this in a variable response. Okay, so I'm going to pass that in here. Then from our query, where ID is equals to ID, then let's perform a destroy process. So this is the way on how to delete the record. So that method is destroy. So if completed, let's proceed with the then function data. And from here, we're going to call the cons res equals to success is equals to true, and the message of let's say I'll be using this one, ID. So this would be ID deleted successfully. And from here, we could perform a return res. Okay, so then we can copy this but instead, like this one, I'll replace that to return res. Okay, so that should be it. And outside, we need to call the res.json response. Okay, let's check this for the last time. Okay, so as simple as that. So now let's go back to our router. So from here, we can call the controller that this time delete. Okay, so let's check or let's proceed with our request. So from here, I can copy this section here. And let's make a new request. This time, we're going to perform a delete request and the delete URL. Okay, so let's review our previous entry. So from our existing data, I'll be deleting this ID3. Let's go back in there. So from here, I'm going to include slash ID3. Let's try. if I hit send, and there you go. Okay, so let's go back to our list of customers. So from here, let's resend. Okay, so that's it. So as you can see, the ID 3 is now deleted. Okay, cool. Okay, so that's it, guys. So as you can see, using Bookshelf is much easier. In a typical, there's also a bunch of stuff that we can discuss about Bookshelf. But if in the future we can expand this one, because some factors here that I didn't mention, that I didn't use a CLI to create the migration or seed or any models, the typical stuff that you're working on. Like the same goes in the SQLize that you know. So in modules, you can do that as well. What we do now is we perform or examine the concept, or what are the structures behind this bookshelf. As you can see, most common of these codes are taken from my first request, like the Kinex. But some bunch here are already changed, like the porch. I think. Yeah. So one of the common here is the porch that's already changed, and the way of saving, or the saving is basically, I think that's the most common part, but the update and the rest like this one. Okay, so that so this is the basic one. So take note this porch, and the update part wherein kind of confusing, but if you used to it, like this one, as you can see, instead of using the models, we perform that within the den. So, yeah, so that's one of this way that we can compare. And of course, okay. And of course, we apply the method of course, the concept of MVC. So this is how we restructure our code. So again, if you want to learn more about ORM, check next time or the next video about ORM, because I'm going to discuss all the ORM that we know and we didn't know. So it's kind of cool stuff for comparing these ORMs. But for now, if you find this video informative, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. And see you guys on the next video series. Cheers!